Hey everybody, it is Hannah here with the week 2 update for Loss. Uh, Going over the results from week 2 and going into some sort of looking forward to week 3. I am joined this week by WesnAsty
The
from
one and only.
from E-City Electrikes. How you doing today, Wes?
I'm doing fan-damn-tabulous. How are you
I'm pretty good. Yeah,
doing?
had to have somebody on the video this week who actually won a game.
I know, right?
Emblem is out of pocket this week just because he is apparently somewhere where there is no Wi-Fi.
Truly
So
a modern-day tragedy.
it is a tragedy, just the saddest. But
Abs.
we will carry on without him because we are professionals, and that's what professionals do.
Yeah.
So, quick rundown of the standings. Currently, Denny and I are somehow on top of Conference 1 with 3 wins, 1 loss, and a +6 differential. With the Demsdale Dittos hot on our heels at also 3-1, but only having a +5. Swell Thunder and Moonlight Magirna are definitely keeping pace, though, with respective 2 wins and 2 losses each. Over in Conference 2, Waffles and Kira prove that they are now probably the team to beat in that conference, with clean 2-0 win over the Ludicolos, putting them up at 3-1 and having the only positive differential. E-City and the B-Drills are both sitting at 1 win and 2 losses apiece, more on the fact that they only have 3 games played later. And the Ludicolo are just kind of having a rough go of it this season, but I think
They'll turn
that
it
will,
around.
yeah, that will turn around in time. I have absolute faith in Emblem and Lily. So why don't we jump straight into it with some games?
Yeah.
So starting with Dimsdale Ditto and Swell Thunder, which was this week the first match listed on the schedule and the first match that got played, particularly starting with Ooze's matchup with Sky. This game was weird.
It's truly something powerful.
Like this game was this game was something to watch. Like what more do you want besides Landorus stare downs and a like Parish Trap Polytoad? Also 4 weathers. Oh wait,
All the weather was present this week, and it
yeah.
was it
Okay,
was definitely something to see.
yeah. Okay, actually they did not bring a sand setter, so it was only 3 weathers.
You
But
never know. Uh, Laterus might have had sandstorm.
yeah, there might have been the secret sandstorm tack on Landorus that just never got pulled out. But
I can't see why. I have to say, personally, for me, I was surprised at how liking Rock.
yeah, like it seemed very much like Ooze tried to get probably a little too techy with some of his builds and just
Mm,
did not have a plan for Lycanroc is underrated Pokemon. Lycanroc clicks Stone Edge. Things don't like having Stone Edge clicked into them. Like,
it was the big damage.
yeah. And
Uh,
like, oh,
But yeah, the Pear song actually getting off was pretty good. I don't really see a target that it could have got better on other than a Lowland Muck,
yeah,
except for maybe Low King, but
yeah. I think if the Parish song had also picked off the Slow King, that would have put
turn things around.
yeah, that would have put him in a much or put Ooze in a much better position to win. I still think that he never really looked to be in a position where clicking Stone Edge was not just going to give him fits, though.
I agree.
Like, it almost looks like they prepped everything around the idea that Lycanroc was going to be with Emily this week, and just that really just gave Ooze sort of no real space to play around. So,
But that's the way this draft works.
yeah.
You gotta you get caught not prepping for the right threat.
Yeah.
Sneaks up on you.
And then on the opposite side, um, Zex's matchup with Emily sort of showed what the Dittos sort of look like when they lock in on just running one type of weather and just sort of play more of the power game. And that was it was another very interesting game. It was it was close right up to the point where it felt like Emily just sort of ran out of gas.
Mm-hmm.
Like it got down to Florges versus I believe the
Licky
final four
licky.
was yeah, it was Florges and Tornadus versus Zeraora and Licky Licky, and it was just really clear that at that point Emily didn't have anything that could break through and get the job done. So,
Yeah, I agree. This is a much better, more I feel like more concise, if that's the right word, kind of performance from the Dimsdale Dittos than the first match. I'm really upset that Castform didn't get time to shine, but maybe next week.
yeah, maybe next week we'll get to see the calling it now. We get a KO out of cast form sand mode in
Powerful.
week 3. That is that is my hottest of hot takes on
I'm
the
rooting for him.
week uh on the week 3.
Yeah.
Um moving on to the uh Ludicolo Lilycove Ludicolo taking on waifu material uh just to sort of start off with Lily versus Kira. This was a very like interesting like game. Like it
I agree.
it was really competitive right up to the point where Primarina just went full Chad mode. Like Primarina just came in and said all eyes on me and just
That's right. Primarina decided to get on Tinder and just keep swiping all of the other Mons away.
yep.
Uh, there were a few moves by Lily that I found a little bit questionable, especially with that powerful turn one coil. I don't know if that's the right move for turn one, but you never know. And then also they had Z Sunny Day, which I did not see
Yeah.
coming.
The Z Sunny Day was that is the new spicy tack.
Yeah,
Like
that would have
I
that would have had me scared for sure.
I had the prediction that like Lily was going to be the one to bring something spicy this week. And I think that it's one of those Z Sunny Day was sort of the sleeper like spice that nobody could really taste after the complete palate blowout that was Ooze versus Sky. Like we got Ooze versus Sky in game one, and that was just so spicy that like you could not taste the heat coming out of Z Sunny Day.
I agree. Why even play all these other matches? We already knew. We
Yeah,
already they put it on the table. Uh, but yes, other than that, it was good, fine Pokemoning
yeah.
all around.
I think that definitely this was a well played game on both sides. Just as soon as the hidden power dropped Leavanny, like the outcome was more or less written. It was just watching it play out in slow motion. Like especially with Primarina having been like having enough bulk to eat the discharge like it was nothing. Like
I
I
agree.
don't know if the Primarina was EV'd for bulk. I have not
Mm-hmm.
I
Not
have
me
not
either.
run the calcs yet, but like
It was definitely EV'd for victory.
yeah, it was definitely EV'd for victory. And then the other battle in that matchup was Waffles versus Emblem. This one was like another case of really well played Pokemon. Like
Yeah.
this game was pretty solid all around. I feel like the game sort of ended a lot earlier than it looked like, just because everything kind of started falling apart for Emblem as soon as the paralysis landed onto Incineroar.
Yeah, but
Like, this was a game where Incineroar seemed to be doing everything in his power to, like, drag the rest of the lineup over that finish line, and as soon as, like, that paralysis came down, he just was held down just enough that, like, the other threats out of, or well, not other threats, but just the threats out of Waffles, were like a little too much to overcome. And then the gravy on top was the freeze hacks on Sylveon. Because as soon as that went down, that meant Sylveon was negated for the rest of the battle, and there was nothing that was going to stop Rotom from just clicking electric moves
mm,
and things go down.
it's
Like,
weird how it's almost worse than just being one hit KO.
yeah,
Being stuck in. Yeah. But all in all, good, solid Pokemoning from each player.
yeah. Um, Continuing the trend of good, solid Pokemoning, got Denny and Princess's battle. This one was really, really lopsided. Like, I think Denny KO'd four of Princess's Pokemon without really that much, like, pushback. And then, like, everything came to a screeching halt at that moment where it was down to, I believe it, like, all kind of crashed, like, to a dead stop at Empoleon versus Palisand. And it took Denny a while to sort of Rubik's Cube his way around the Palisand and finally realize that like the natural solution that you look to in Venusaur was sort of just the way to attack it, and I feel like he sort of overthought that sort of stretch of the mid game
Mm.
where he was trying to break Palisand. Like, but the hidden power rock out of Typhlosion to just body just body Moltres.
Yeah,
That
I'm
was
very.
beautiful.
I was very impressed with Typhlosion. Picked up 2 kills, I think, this week
Yeah,
in both the fire types. So trying
yeah,
to show off who's the best fire type, obviously. Uh, I was a little bit disappointed in the Aqua Jet from Denny. I don't think Palisand would have had nearly as much cleanup power, or I guess staying power, if it wasn't for that quick mistake.
yeah. I think that was the one place where I feel like Denny did make a mistake in this battle was in forgetting about the water compaction out of Palossand. Like he played an otherwise like beautiful game. It just sort of forgetting about water compaction like really slowed his momentum in finishing. But there
Yep,
again, Venusaur came in and
just kind of cleaned up.
just kind of did whatever it wanted, and it was there was really at the point that Venusaur came along no like outs for it.
Mm.
Um, my matchup versus Roxa. Roxa did some very good Pokemoning things. I will go ahead and say I did not.
Uh,
like,
I was very impressed by a couple of his Pokemon, namely Ditto and Regice. They seem to put in a lot more work than their tier would suggest.
yeah, like he did so much work with between Ditto as Entei, between Ditto as Entei, Ditto copying Stealth Rocks off of Mew. Um, really the like beautiful play though was very early in the battle. Roxa read the parting shot out of Sil Valley
Yes, yes.
and
I didn't.
pivoted into Regice, and
That's a blowout right there.
that was a total blowout of momentum. And like between that and just the amount of chunking that Roxa got out of the like transformed Entei, like and there was actually like I just noticed this a fun parallel between Denny's battle in week 1 and my battle in week 2, where both of us had that like all according to Keikaku moment where Lycanroc came in and ate a crit Stone Edge, but unfortunately, like
Mm.
l- the follow up being extreme speed is a lot worse than whatever the follow up was for what
Yeah.
Denny's Lycanroc took when it came in. But like all in all, Roxa played a really impressive game, and like
Yeah.
is definitely shaping up to be like showing to be probably of the like less experienced coaches in the league, definitely sort of showing that they are one of the bigger threats because they are at this point, I think, two. Yeah, they're responsible for both of the both of the wins that the Magirna have to their name, and they have both been two really well played games. So, like, massive props to Roxa for some really well played Pokemon. And then last matchup of the week is your battle with Hatsworth. So, what was sort of your takeaway after that particular battle?
Well, a lot like how you said, I feel as though I very much so did not play that well at all this week, but I feel like my building was good enough. Uh, Ninetales was the secret sauce this week. It completely that was the answer to everything. I'm really upset at a couple of calcs that I just didn't do, namely with Paloswine and Cradily, uh, where I just kind of clicked moves to see what would happen,
Yeah,
and I got a little bit punished for it.
yeah. Cradily, like, was one of the, like, more outstanding, like, Pokemon in a loss this week. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, like, there was a point where the Rock Slide, um, the Rock Slide whiff against Mega Gardevoir, like, might have potentially tilted things. Like, obviously, you can't go back and know what the lines of play would have been if the RNG rolls differently, but I did run the calc, and it was like if the Rock Slide hits, it is a 50-50 that
Mm-hmm.
that knocks out Gardevoir, and then that later means that Cradily is still around at about half to check Dragonite for the rest of the battle.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there's there again, we don't know what would have happened in that different sort of timeline, but
But
that was that
hacks are
was
hack.
the point. Yeah, hacks are hacks, and that was the point where basically any hope of Hats winning the matchup went sort of to the wayside. That was where the battle really ended. So,
Yeah, but excellent Pokemoning on my opponent's part. Uh, uh, it was great. It was fun, and I'm not sure if we'll be playing again. No, I think everybody
um,
plays once, and then we
yeah,
cut to top.
yeah.
So maybe.
Everybody plays, and then it's cut to top. The odds of y'all meeting again are pretty rough, just because that would require,
It would require Kira and Waffles to take a couple weeks off.
yeah, Kira and Waffles would have to just fall off the face of the earth because they have been playing easily the best Pokemon of Conference 2. Like, I think that probably. I feel like we're starting to see some teams display a like level of play that is enough to give them a little bit of an edge, at least in my mind, towards trending into playoffs. Um, I think even though they're a little bit behind in the actual game race, Swell Thunder is trending really highly. I think the Dittos are trending very hot, and I think that all of Conference 2 is at this point chasing waifu material. So, what about you? Do you have any sort of takes about after 2 weeks where you think the playoff race is sort of looking?
Uh, I think sure there might be some teams that have this kind of like first couple week jitters, or maybe they got to settle into their team a little bit. So then after a few weeks they'll be better. I think though what's really going to show off is uh, free agenting going on forward, because there's been quite a lot of free agents thrown around, and I think if somebody was smart and saved all theirs for when everybody else blew it, they might just be able to pick up some hot techs and might sneak away with some wins.
This is entirely true. Like, I think four teams have made at least one free agent move already, and
It's only week 2.
yeah, it's only week 2 of a 7 week season. So, like, out of a potential 32 already, six of them have been made. So, that is definitely something that is going to be very interesting. Um, One last thing that's sort of a bridge between week two's outcomes and week three's games is obviously Emperor being gone from the Babylonian Beedrills. Uh, Currently, what that means is basically Hats will build the second team for the Babylonian Beedrills, and then by random selection, one of the mods will pilot that into Optimistic. And so I think, like, that result obviously has a lot of potential to tilt the balance of Conference 2 pretty heavily because with like the winning team is now would then only be one game behind Waffles and Kira, while the losing team is now a game behind uh, the winner, differential separated away from the winner, and has the head to head working against them. So that is definitely something that does matter immensely in the
Yeah,
scheme of where things are. So,
I'd also like to point out that now is probably the worst time the in this league to have a person drop out for the Babylonian B drills, considering how we were this week, and I believe you guys are next week. Is
yeah,
that correct? So,
yes,
got some pretty fierce competition,
the Twash
all trying
Pandas.
to adjust. Yeah, the best. I'm rooting for you guys. A name alone, you deserve to win everything. But yeah, they have pretty tough week after week, and so it's really hard to not only adjust to the teammates but also still have to pay. play competitive and aggressive Pokemon. So
That
I
is,
wish them the best, and I'm optimistic to see how they're going forward.
yeah, definitely good luck to Hatsworth. If in nothing else, having, finding a permanent replacement partner to sort of work with through the season so that he's not sort of floating in limbo, having to do all of the prep himself and having to count on the roll of the die of sort of which mod is piloting the team that I had to build to
Mm.
like that. That's a very rough situation to find himself in, and I definitely do hope that he finds a replacement partner like soon. So, anything else to add about where the league is after week 2 before we move on to looking at week 3?
Uh, Other than our one last match that hasn't been played yet between my partner and the mods, nothing really. I think everything here has ended pretty concisely, and I'm excited to see where it comes next.
Alrighty. So now we open up with the first matchup for week 3, which is the Dimsdale Ditto taking on Waifu Material. And obviously, what jumps out here is this is two of the 3-1 teams
Uh
going
huh.
head to head. This is absolutely the showstopper headliner,
Clash of the Titans.
yeah,
Uh,
match to circle for the week.
I agree.
So,
One of the best things of having something like this happen is that obviously one of them has to lose, and that gives other people in the conference time to catch up. Uh, and then it gives the other conference even further gap to climb to. But I am expecting very high level bonds from both teams.
yeah, I think what's going to be very interesting for this one is watching, as always with the Dimsdale Dittos, seeing how Weather War plays out is going to be an immensely, immensely important thing. But this is also probably the first time that we're going to see them really challenged on the weather front. Because this is, I think, the first time that they are going against a team that has a weather setter all its own in Waifu
Alolan Knight.
Materials Alolan Ninetales. So, um, how do you think the sort of first check of we have weather 2 is going to go for the Dittos?
Well, hmm, I think I feel like their megas don't really line up the best with Waifu Materials team. You know,
Yeah, that is entirely fair. Charizard and Swampert do have some things that they will definitely struggle against in like Charizard outside of having dragon moves doesn't really touch Latias. Charizard really can't touch Heatran unless it's counting on um, Focus
physical
Blast. Yeah,
physical Charizard. Why with Earthquake? It's good.
and then the
Good.
counterattack of Air Balloon Heatran.
There's always a bigger fish.
The Tex
Uh,
into the Tex. Yeah, I think really that the Dittos want pretty badly to try and line up where Beartic is against Alolan Ninetales though,
mhm.
just so that they can have the abuser without having to bring the setup for themselves. I think that that's definitely a point where they are going to look to play around. I also think that they are going to have to be very cautious with how they distribute their ground threats because outside of their ground Pokemon, they have very little that answers Heatran well. And so they have to not only distribute them intelligently, but they also need to play around play around Swampert and play around Landorus very safely. Otherwise, Heatran will come in and probably like shut everything down. Um,
I agree. I also feel like the Dittos don't really have a great answer to Megalopony, other than maybe Caesar.
that
Really?
is that is definitely true. Lopunny innately preys on Charizard and a lot of other slow, sort of moderately bulky Pokemon, and so I think that definitely Lopunny could potentially prove to be problematic if they don't if they don't uh, balance threats against it well. That's another Pokemon where they only have a small handful of toys to play with, and they have to make sure that they're not being overly reliant on any. They're not overloading either side with Lopunny answers, and they're playing around answers to Lopunny sort of more conservatively. So,
I agree.
anything else to add on the waifu material in the Dittos?
Nope. I wish both teams luck for a good hacks-free, full full good Pokemoning, rousing good time.
A battle of skill and not a battle of heart, and Jesus taking the wheel.
But that can be fun sometimes too.
This is definitely true. So, on to the next matchup, which is Lilycove Ludicolo taking on Moonlight Magearna. This looks to be definitely another very interesting series. I think as always, where you've got to start is how do the Ludicolo react to the just overwhelming amount of fire Pokemon that you are looking at um out of the Magearnas. Like and honestly, the numbers of responses to just fire everywhere are a bit like troublesome for the Ludicolo. Like Nilago, Claydol, and Archeops all match up well into most of the firepower that you're looking at from the Magirna, but otherwise, they are pretty vulnerable to just, like, the raw fire spam. Oh, I did miss Quagsire.
Yeah, can't put my boy Quagsire out yet. He
Cannot
is
forget.
unaware. He is unaware of how strong the opponent's team is. Uh, I would actually like to counter, and I feel like the Magirnas don't really have a good answer, or at least a good switch in, other than Palossand for the Mega Manectric.
That is an entirely true point. Manectric just comes in and starts
Comes in,
clicking,
leaves, comes back in, leaves again.
and it can click whatever move it wants as often as it wants. And between electric and fire attacks coming out of it, really only Palossand stands up and doesn't
Mm-hmm.
start to get really heavily chipped by just Pinsir generating all the free momentum that it could ever want. I also think that this might be the week that Emblem finally breaks through and starts making things happen with Archeops.
Mm.
Because I believe Emblem brought Archeops in both of his battles so far, and in both battles, Archeops has not had the most fun time. I believe in week one, before it got to launch a meaningful attack, it had already been knocked into defeatist. And in the week two battle, likewise, Archeops had to rotate in and out through Stealth Rocks twice, and that left it in defeatist range again. So we haven't really seen Archeops really accomplish much yet, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like if there is going to be a week that justifies Archeops's place on the Lilycove Ludicolo, this is going to be the week.
Yeah, I
So,
could definitely see it putting in a little bit of work.
so that is definitely a point that is going to be interesting to watch. Um, Next up, we've got Swell Thunder taking on your team, E-City Electrikes. So, um, this is where I get to do a lot of talking because I know you probably don't want to share too much in the way of your opinions, just so that.
Why would I want to not do that?
And
I ain't got no I ain't got no fear. I'll tell you every one of the mons I bring. I ain't scared.
I just realized I forgot to. I'm using an unupdated version of the Swell Thunder's lineup. So
Ah,
let me fix that real quick. Zera Aura. Slowking. And that's embarrassing though. But anyway,
um, but their team is definitely got some pretty noticeable threats. I do have to say that not a lot of them are too scary. We do have a number of flying types, but not a ton of electric weaknesses. So both its Zero Aura and Tapu Koko don't really scare me that much.
that's entirely
Uh,
fair.
Probably the number one thing that does scare me is probably Steelix. Don't really have a ton of ton of answers for Steelix that isn't Electric Week, so that'll probably be a pretty interesting kind of play around of how do I not get bodied by this, but yet still bring coverage for that. And other than that, I feel their team is fine, and
Yeah.
I am not afraid.
I definitely think that, like, I have mentioned this before, I think in the post-draft video, that, like, the big strength for Swell Thunder is they are able to create momentum better
Mm-hmm.
than any other team in the league. They have the best Volt Switcher. They have the best Pokemon that can U-turn. I still am not on board with saying that Landorus Therian is the best U-turner, like is the best U-turner, but Landorus is the best Pokemon, which also happens to be able to use U-turn. And so I think that a big challenge that you guys are going to face is keeping up with just the immense amount of momentum that they generate
Mm-hmm.
and not falling behind in the tempo game. Um, I also think that playing around their terrains, sort of having a plan for the fact that they have the absolute terrain control is something that everyone is going to have to sort of check for as the league continues. And so I think definitely one advantage that y'all do have is while one of your driving Pokemon is a ground type, it's a ground type that Tapu Bulu actually loses to. Like, most ground types, Tapu Bulu is just a hard lock on, but Excadrill can, like, drill run. It has a lot of options for getting its ground power out, and its Iron Head is deadly threatening into Tapu Bulu. So I definitely think that that is going to be something that is worth paying attention to. The other curiosity is just going to be, do we get a Battle of the Mucks? Since you have Kanto Muck and they have a Lola Muck,
I don't know. We'll try and set something up.
that will definitely be that will be an entertaining thing to see if nothing else. So, and then the last matchup for the week is Hatsworth taking on Denny and I with the Babylonian Beedrill versus Tamao and Thwash Pandas. I think that this is definitely going to be an interesting matchup for us, just because this is something that is so close to what we want to be doing as well. Like, we are very structured around not necessarily being as fast as everyone else, but in being bulky and in playing like playing a very hit trade centric game. And I think that the Babylonian Beedrills probably have the other team in the league that is sort of most reliant on that playstyle. So, what are your thoughts about Babylonian Beedrill versus Tamawaway and Twash Pandas?
I feel like their team matches up to yours pretty well, like what you were saying. Uh, a lot of your kind of more threatening mons do have kind of powerful answers on their side. Uh, namely, I don't think anyone on your team really, I guess other than Empoleon, really wants to deal with Mega Beedrill. All things considered. Well, I mean, other than Shedinja, of course, the most powerful. As far as on your team to theirs, other than some things, I don't know how they deal with Mega Venusaur. So I think this is a very interesting. Both of you have very powerful win conditions, and it'll be interesting to see who plays better to that.
Entirely fair. Um, so with that said, of the four matchups we have this weekend, which one are you telling people to go and to watch?
I think it's pretty easy on my part. It's got to be the waifu material and the Dimsdale Dittos. It's the Clash of the Titans. I hope both of them are going to bring the most heat, the most power. I think if any of the matches, they'll probably be the most spectacular. But you know,
I am absolutely in agreement with you. I think Waffles in particular has shown that he has come to play this season, and he has brought out some very creative plays around several of his lower tier Pokemon. Um, I kind of wonder if perhaps this isn't the week that shifts up a little bit, but and I think another thing is just going to be the Dittos have shown that they are on a very even level of experience, and they are both extremely experienced players in their own rights. And I feel like perhaps, well, actually, I can't say that because um, I feel like Kira's inexperience might lead to her having some struggles playing into the weather.
mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, she has shown that she has no fear of more experienced coaches coming at her because she took on Emily and did not hesitate, did not blink, and took Emily to her limit. And so I'm excited to see if she can bring that level of performance again against the Ditto and potentially even go the one step beyond that and, you know, bring
Mm-hmm.
a full, clean 2-0 win. Um, just to give a different answer, though, for my own, I would definitely say that I think seeing how you and Optimistic match up against the Swell Thunder is going to be another really interesting matchup in this coming week. Um, Seeing how y'all thread the needle of hunting Steelix without getting eaten alive by Zera Aura and Tapu Koko together. Seeing if you guys can keep up with the constant pace setting and sort of seeing how y'all deal with the raw amount of momentum that Emily and uh, Sky are going to throw at you. I think that that is definitely going to be something to pay very close attention to. So,
Then the Muck Dittos, right?
yeah, the Muck Dittos. Muck Ditto is going to be. That's going to be the. That's the real story to watch. Is
That's the
do
real
we
gas.
get do we get A Muck versus K Muck? I am so in support of this. So, anything else you would like to add going into sort of just as a general point about week 3 before we call it a wrap?
Uh, you say it's a 7 week draft, so surprisingly, we're already almost halfway there.
Yeah.
So I think this is kind of the last week where you're allowed to have those, early week jitters. From this point on, it's going to be pretty tight race, or else people are going to be just winning by landslides in these point differentials. So if your heart wasn't in it before, it's got to put it in it now.
Yeah, this is where we start to probably see some level of separations start to form in the like in the conferences. I think every week from here out we have some in conference matchups and some cross conference matchups. Um oh, actually no, this is another week where it's all cross conference. Huh. But yeah.
Cool.
So, I think this could potentially be the week where Conference 2 chases down and gets their revenge on Conference 1 for the utter rout that was week 1.
Yeah,
Like,
that's my
I
plan at least.
I think this might be Conference 2's revenge week. So, okay. Well,
Yeah,
do you have anything you would like to plug before you go?
nothing to plug. Just keep on watching and wish me luck.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you for dropping in and recording, and
Anytime.
we will see y'all next week.
Bye bye.